In 1589, a young queen's wedding journey turned into a nightmare. Anne of Denmark set sail to marry King James VI of Scotland, but a series of deadly storms nearly destroyed her fleet. To James, this wasn't mere bad luck. It was the work of witches serving the devil himself. What followed was one of the most infamous witch hunts in Scottish history, involving storms, secret midnight gatherings, and confessions of diabolical plots that still chill the blood today. Welcome to the Unquiet Archive. Today, the archivist investigates the story of Anne of Denmark. Anne was born in 1574, the second daughter of King Frederick II of Denmark and Sophie of somewhere unpronounceable. At just 15 years old, she was married by proxy to James VI of Scotland, the man who would later rule as James I of England and Ireland and write the work Daemonologie. But Anne's journey to Scotland for the wedding nearly cost her her life and perhaps her soul, if the stories are to be believed. In August 1589, Anne set sail with a fleet commanded by Admiral Peter Monk. Almost immediately, disaster struck. At Elsinore, the very castle later immortalised as Hamlet's home, a naval cannon misfired, killing 2 gunners. The next day, another cannon exploded during a ceremonial salute, killing 1 man and injuring 9 others. It felt like an omen. The weather turned violent. Anne's ship, the Gideon, went missing for 3 terrifying days. 2 other ships collided, killing more soldiers. The Gideon sprang a leak and had to seek repairs in Norway, only to spring another leak soon after. By October the 1st, the battered fleet limped into the Norwegian port of Flekkerøy. Anne finally admitted defeat. In a letter to James, she wrote, "We have already put out to sea 4 or 5 times, but have always been driven back to the harbours. Fearing greater danger, we are forced to defer the voyage until the spring." James was frantic. From Seaton Palace, overlooking the Firth of Forth, he prayed and fasted. Memories of John Darrell, perhaps. He prayed and fasted and even wrote songs as he waited for news. At last, when he could no longer stand it, he gathered 300 men and sailed to rescue his bride, only to be caught in violent storms himself. Against the odds, James reached Oslo on November the 19th, where he and Anne were finally married. But James was convinced these were no ordinary storms. Someone had tried to kill his queen. Anne and James travelled to Denmark. Whilst there, James heard of several witch trials where women were accused of conjuring storms to destroy ships. To him, this seemed to explain the terrifying voyage. If witches had plotted against him, it wasn't just treason. It was war against God himself. When James and Anne returned to Scotland, these fears took root. Soon, the first great Scottish witch hunt erupted, the North Berwick trials. Dozens were accused, but one name stood out: Agnes Sampson, a respected midwife and healer. Under torture, Agnes confessed to a shocking plot. She described how, on Halloween night, over 200 witches had gathered in the churchyard at North Berwick. There, they renounced their baptisms, kissed the devil, and plotted the king's destruction. They supposedly used a dead cat, throwing it into the sea while chanting spells to summon the storm that wrecked Anne's fleet. The witches took a cat and christened it in the sea, and by these means raised such tempests as no ship was able to withstand. Agnes even described the devil appearing in human form, a dark figure who directed their actions. To James's horror, she revealed private details of his wedding night that no one could possibly have known. For James, this was proof she truly had supernatural knowledge. The North Berwick trials became a spectacle of fear and cruelty. Prisoners were shaved to find the devil's mark, a spot where no pain could be felt. Pins were driven into their flesh, and those who failed the test were condemned. Many were tortured until they confessed to impossible crimes. Several, including Agnes Sampson, were executed by strangling and burning. The pamphlet, News from Scotland, spread their stories across Europe, cementing James's reputation as a defender of the faith against witchcraft. But these trials also set a deadly precedent. Over the coming decades, thousands of Scots, mostly women, would be accused of witchcraft, many meeting the same horrific fate. James's obsession with witchcraft culminated in 1597 when he published Daemonologie, a manual for identifying and prosecuting witches. There will be more about this book in another video. But as he aged, his views shifted. By 1599, James became more sceptical, even warning judges to be wary of false accusations. Yet, damage was done. The North Berwick trials had unleashed a wave of paranoia and persecution that would haunt Scotland for generations. Anne of Denmark may have survived the storms, but the witches accused of summoning them were not so fortunate. Next time you hear the wind howling across the North Sea, remember the storm that nearly sank a queen and the dark chapter of history it inspired. If you enjoyed this haunting tale, please consider liking or subscribing and join me for more spooky stories this October. Well, another mystery safely catalogued, though I'd rather not have been on that voyage myself. Imagine 200 witches gathered on a stormy Halloween night, all to sink a single queen's ship. Makes our modern day travel delays seem almost pleasant. Of course, history is full of dangerous crossings and dark deeds. Who knows what other spirits are still out there waiting to be uncovered. Best to keep your wits about you and your candle lit. Join me again soon for another tale from the Unquiet Archive.